Thank you all for coming. My name is Dan Kittredge. I'm guessing most people know that much. It seems like almost no one knows why they're here, which is kind of exciting. So let me give a little bit of context and then we'll step into the process. This is the third in a series of global listening sessions around this treaty, proposed treaty for the definition of nutrient density in food. So for a bit of context, I grew up on an organic farm in the US. My parents were leaders in the organic movement. They wrote some of the first organic standards in the US in the 1980s. I've been, through my professional career as a farmer, realized that there was more to it than just not using chemicals. Sort of delved deeply into the principles of how nature worked. I call them principles of biological systems. Learned from a bunch of elders in a community called Acres USA. Started in the 1970s by a guy named Charles Walters it was sort of a big tent and integrated wisdom from permaculture and biodynamics and agroecology and organic and biochemistry and microbiology and quantum and indigenous traditions, sort of a broad perspective. This was in the early 2000s, 2006, 2007. Was exposed to this concept called BRICS, which some people may here be familiar with. BRICS was an Austrian chemist from the 1830s who got a scale named after him. People oftentimes misstate that BRICS measures sugar. It is not. It measures total dissolved solids and angle of bend of light. But when I got exposed to the concept of BRICS and realized that there was a dramatic variation in nutrient levels in food that could be measured, and just because I was organic did not mean my stuff was better, it sort of set off this chain of insights in my head about what I was doing as a farmer and a whole bunch of other deeper implications. I looked around at the permaculture community, at the organic community, the biodynamic community, the locavores, and everybody was basically talking about how they were better. And I thought if the better was nutritional value of food, there should be some way to measure it. And if a BRICS refractometer was a way you could measure it, and what we were actually finding was that there was a profound variation across the board in everybody, maybe we should be focusing on the quality of food, not our tribal identities. I'm biodynamic, you're permaculture, we're organic, you're local. I asked the question to the elders in the community, what is the term for this variation in nutrient levels in food? And they said, basically there is none. And I said, well, it seems like it's a really important thing. Would you mind if I worked on it? And I actually created a little manifesto and went to them all and I said, I won't do this unless you give me your signature. But I really think this is important and I want to do it. So they all signed it. At that point, I coined this term nutrient density to refer to this concept of that there's a dramatic variation in nutrient levels in food. As I was farming and I was applying these principles, got to the point in fairly short order where I was making a living working 20 hours a week on the farm, because actually when you work with nature, things are much more efficient. Pests were gone, diseases were gone, yield was up, shelf life, flavor, aroma, all these dynamics were dramatically improved, and I had spare time. So I started giving workshops, which turned into courses, which turned into an educational nonprofit called the Bionutrient Food Association, founded in 2010. Spent a number of years doing courses, set up an annual conference, teaching workshops, etc. Spread across North America with this information, spread into other countries, effectively helping farmers understand how nature evolved things to work, and supporting them in shifting their practices to optimize system function from a biological perspective. And what we saw was that regardless of the soil type, the climate zone, the crop, the individual practices, when you optimized soil health, system function improved. Carbon sequestered, ecosystem function improved, pest and disease resistance improved, fertilizer applications dropped, farmer profitability improved, shelf life, aroma, flavor, all these things improved when you worked more well with life. And we said, my God, if this is true, that by working well with life, we can effectively solve a number of problems simultaneously, wouldn't this be a great thing to bring to scale? There's a lot of problems in the world. This is the kind of thing that could be a solution. And so the question then became, how would you take this and bring it to scale? And the idea effectively was that economics is a powerful force in today's day and age. And if we could align economic incentive with ecological benefit, with human health benefit, maybe we could get somewhere. And so the grand vision was that we could give or make available to anybody who purchases food the ability to identify the quality of that food in real time with a flash of light. The science is called spectroscopy, and if people maybe have heard of the Hubble Space Telescope. Or the James Webb Telescope. We know that we can read what stars are made up of 10 million light years away with a flash of light, because every element in chemistry is a vibration in physics. Copper vibrates at a certain frequency, which effectively is a certain color. Polyphenols and protein, etc., vibrate at certain frequencies. So the idea was, the fantasy was, the vision, that we could build a handheld, consumer-priced flash of light meter that could be used at point of purchase to empower people who buy food for their families to choose the food that's most nutritious and leave on the shelf that which is least nutritious. And so this is a bit of work that we've been working on now for a number of years. I've got a slideshow that I'm going to present to walk people through some of the more specifics and get sort of frame the concept. We have worked now for the past 4 years on defining what we call nutrient density in a crop, which is beef. And that nutrient density we're saying is a 1 to 100 standard. So we can say that this steak is 20 out of 100, this steak is 40 out of 100, this steak is 80 out of 100. From a comprehensive systemic definition point. We are proposing to do this now on 20 crops in the next 2.5 years. As we are a small NGO and have been doing all this work for a number of years based on effectively just impetuousness, we think it's important, so we're going to do it figured out one way or another. That's great to have gotten this far and to have not fallen apart and maintain forward motion, etc. But we now think it's time to broaden this process, to open it up, and to see if we can coalesce a broader global coalition around this process. So the process is, we've got a draft treaty. I use the term treaty intentionally. People may be familiar with maybe a human rights treaty or a treaty on, I don't know, fishing in the ocean. Somebody drafts a treaty, and then those participants who were interested in being part of it edit it. They review it, they add comments, they critique it, they rewrite stuff, and when that treaty process is complete, when there's a final draft, people sign it. And so what we're doing right now is we're engaging a global series of listening sessions where we're bringing this treaty around the planet. We did a couple sessions in Australia last month. We're doing a couple here in Europe this month. We'll do some in North America. Next month we're looking at South America and Africa, and we're hoping by the end of November to have a final draft that we'll be presenting at the Congress of Bleu Blancourt in France. People may or may not be familiar with Bleu Blancourt. It's the only certification label in the world that is connected to the nutritional caliber of food. And Bleu Blancourt has been around for a very long time. They've got a brilliant ecosystem of allies. It's a wonderful community. So we're very honored to be able to present this final draft of the treaty to their Congress at the end of November. So we're in this window of time now of a couple months when we're engaging people globally in the conversation. A few people are showing up in person, many more engaging online, editing, commenting, posting, etc. So all these events are being recorded. The recordings are being put on the website for anybody who wants to listen to any one of them. Some of them are live fed. This one is not. Tomorrow in Budapest will be. So that's the context for the event. For those of you who didn't know why you're here, I'm going to present for an hour, and then we would like you to offer comments, critiques, and suggestions. So you have a draft treaty in your hands. If at any point in time what I'm saying is boring to you, you can read the treaty while I'm speaking. I'll try to give you 5 or 10 minutes when I'm done speaking to read it, and then our hope is that you will offer comment, critique, suggestion, insight, etc. We're really trying to, engage thoughtful interlocutors in this conversation. So, with that being said, I welcome anybody who doesn't want to be here to feel welcome to get up and walk out of the room. If you didn't know why you came, this is the agenda. So, no shame. No shame in getting up. Okay, well, with that, I'll proceed. Okay, I think I said a bit about nutrient density. This is the farm I grew up on in central Massachusetts. For what it's worth, this is the context. This is my context. I think I said that the BFA was founded in 2010. Our mission is to increase quality in the food supply. And by quality, we're talking about flavor, aroma, nutritive value. We're not talking about aesthetic and uniformity. We're talking about nutritional caliber. Our vision is that the ambient level of, from a nutritional standpoint, of food on the planet for all people next year is higher than it is this year. And in the year after that is higher than it is next year. We want to increase quality in the food supply, full stop, for humans on the planet year on year on year. That's our vision, and we're just going to be as strategic as we can about accomplishing it. I said this before, we were founded in 2010. Our original intentions were to, our work was education. These are pictures of some of the speakers we've had at our conferences over the years. Anybody who's in the movement probably recognizes a number of these faces. So yeah, we've been attempting to curate wise elders and cutting edge thoughts. Every single presenter at every conference we've ever had has been recorded and is on our YouTube channel for free. We are of the opinion that with our privilege here in the West, we should do what we can to capture the best insights and make them freely available to all on the planet. So actually, I'm speaking tonight at our conference. It's a global conference. We got people from Europe, North America, Africa, Australia, and Martin, who's in the back, is actually on our he's our young up and coming. It's a bunch of graybeards and elders, and yeah, we try to bring some young people who are doing beautiful, passionate, wonderful thing in the community. So. Yes, last week we were in England and we spoke with Charles Dowding. You may have heard of Charles Dowding. So he was on this. I got to hang out with him at his farm for the lecture last week, and here were another ones this week. So anyway, that's all part of a living ecosystem that happens between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock local time tonight. All right. So the meat of the presentation is the science, the work we've done to attempt to build sort of empirical veracity around this conversation. When we sort of were first looking into this conversation, we thought, in our ignorance, simple farmers, that there was a dramatic nutrient variation in food. It was our experience that you could plant the same seed, same variety, same soil, shift the practices, and experience dramatic variation in things like flavor and aroma. And we thought maybe that connected to nutrition. And we thought that maybe there was a dramatic variation in nutrient levels in food. When we went to the university professors, specialists, and talked to them about this, they said, no, you're wrong. Nutrient variation is 2%, 5%, maybe 10% in some circumstances, but basically all food is uniform. We thought maybe that was not true. Our second question was, what causes nutrient variation? Our experience was, it was something along the lines of soil health. When we increased the system function of the microbiome, it seemed like all these things began to come together. Again, for anybody who's been, properly studied in the agronomic literature, there's this thing called G by E by M, which means genetics by environment by management. And so all variation was presumed to be either the soil type, or climate dynamics, or genetics of the seed, or individual management practices. So that was the thesis of what caused nutrient variation. Our third question was, is it possible to build a handheld, consumer-priced, flash of light ray gun? Can we actually create a dynamic where people could hold in their hands something with a flash of light, they could test nutrient levels in food? We had this thesis that if we could do that, if nutrient variation was significant, if it did connect to soil health, if meters could be built, then we could use that economic incentive of people choosing what's best for their families to shift the world. Effectively, if you can go to the grocery store, take 3 bags of carrots, 20, 40, 80, there's your Bunny Love and your Calibrating and your Bolthouse Farms. I don't know what your brands are here in Europe, but those are 3 we couldn't get off the shelf in the US. If you could flashlight at 3 and get 3 different readings, our thought is the average person would take the 80 and leave the 20. And that pull through of all the 80s leaving the shelf, because that person who's be able to do that might put on Facebook or Instagram, hey, this week, Bunny Love is really good and Bolthouse Farms and Calibrating are crappy. All the people in town might begin to pull all those good ones off the shelf and leave the worst. And so the thought is, let that economic incentive pull through the better stuff. That'll inspire the supply chain to focus on nutrition instead of volume. So for that to be a true vision, to be plausible, nutrient variation had to exist. Meters had to be able to be built at a consumer price point. And our thought about the regenerative implications of all this, which is that agriculture can have a positive impact on ecosystems, was that the cause of that nutrient variation, if it existed, had to be something like systemic ecological, health, not something like genetics or soil type or individual management practice. We thought that was the dynamic. So we set about testing this thesis. In 2017, we began the work. In 2016, we identified the 3 questions. Is nutrient variation significant? If so, what causes it? And can that variation be assessed with handheld instrumentation at a consumer price point? I will say we are a charity. We're an NGO. We call it nonprofit, where I come from in the US, which means we're not a for-profit entity. So all the work that we're talking about here, that I will talk about, has been done in the Commons with... Hello. You're welcome. There's no chair for you, but you're welcome. Yes. Hello. There's a couple of comfortable chairs in the back, actually.
Yeah, I'll go there.
Yeah, that's where you guys. That's where I would have sat if I was had a choice. So all the work we've done has been with charitable donations. Everything that we've done is open source. It's in the Commons. It is not proprietary. It is not patented or copyrighted. It is copylefted, which means it is legally in the Commons for all. It can never be locked up. So everything I'm talking about, just so you understand, is in that ethos for the greater good, and then therefore has been funded through charitable donations, not through investment, which will be one of the key points at the end of this conversation. Year 1, 2017, we were able to raise enough money to build our first handheld spectrometer. We had a big party at our conference that year. We released it. A bunch of people came and saw it and like, oh my God, this is amazing. You've been talking about it for years, Dan. This is great. We had a meter. It couldn't do anything. I mean, it could flash lights and take a picture of what came back, but it wasn't calibrated to anything. But at least we were able to build a handheld consumer-priced flashlight meter. That was 2017. 2018, we built our first lab in Michigan. We asked people to send in carrots and spinach from across the U.S., from grocery stores, farmers markets, farms, organic, not organic. We wanted to survey the supply chain from point of purchase. We weren't doing side-by-side randomized replicated trials. We were saying, what's the nature of nutritional variation in the supply chain? We only looked at a few different elements and a couple compounds, but that was the basic question. Does variation exist in the supply chain? Our second year of lab work was 2019. We set up our second lab at Chico State University in California. That year we got up to six crops sent in. Farmers that were working with us, we had them pull the carrots in triplicate or pick the spinach in triplicate. And then we took the soil in triplicate at multiple depths, so top 10 centimeters from underneath each carrot and the next 10 centimeters. So we would be able to overlay the dynamics of the soil against the dynamics in the crop. And then we asked them 50 management questions, like what was the variety, where did you source it, when did you plant it, how did you prepare the soil, how many passes, with what historically had been done to the soil, what was your fertility program, did you inoculate, did you side dress, did you irrigate, with what, how often? So as many different environmental conditions factors as possible we captured, so we could overlay those dynamics against the soil metrics, against the nutrient levels. In 2020, we set up our third lab here in France. That was actually in partnership with Blue Blancourt. Then we got a bunch of samples from across Europe that year. And I'll just show you a graph or a graphic. You can see this is the number of crops we assessed that year. Here's a total. There's the number of samples per crop. All told, at the end of this process, we had about 10,000 crop samples. So a reasonable data set, right? For anybody who knows about science, this is 10,000 samples it's enough. 25 different crops, roots, leaves, fruits, and grains. This is just this year we had over 200 farms. Each one of these green icons is a farm sending in samples. Each one of the orange icons is what we call citizen scientist. So they were going to the grocery stores and the farmers markets and pulling stuff off the shelf and sending it in so we could survey what was in the supply chain. We didn't get the management data or soil from that, but this was sort of our representative, what's normally available to people. You can see here the metrics we assessed in the crops. So antioxidants, polyphenols. In the grain, only protein, a bunch of elements. Here's the metrics we looked at in the soil. And again, we took our meter that we'd built, and with every sample of crop that came in, every sample of soil that came in, we flashed a light with a meter first. We took a picture of the light that bounced back, saved that, and then overlaid that on this is the level of copper, level of polyphenols, so we can begin to back calibrate later. So, so what I'm going to show you now is some of the basic results we found from this preliminary level of our work. This is not the end game. This is just our first 3 questions. How dramatic is variation? What causes it? And can meters be built? Okay, so this slide is elements. This is carrots. All these slides are carrots. I've got slides like this for 20 other crops. 20 other crops. So what you see here, these patterns you see here, understand they're applicable for wheat and oats and potatoes and blueberries and Swiss chard and leeks and cucumbers and apples. Right? Every single crop we looked at, these are the patterns we found. Sulfur, 8.41 milligrams per 100 grams of fresh weight is the least we found. 33.19 is the most we found. That's a 4-to-1 variation. So this carrot has 4 times as much sulfur as that one. Fifths of the range. So if this is 0 and that's 100, there's 20, 40, 60, and 80. So these colors are basically there to just sort of help you see where things sit in a continuum. That makes this point right here the 23rd percentile. There's the 50th percentile. So here's what, 20, 40, 60 samples. So there's a bunch more samples below the 50th percentile than above the 50th percentile. The variation is 4-to-1, but most of what we found was relatively poor in relationship to what was possible. And all the nutrients we looked at here are nutrients that are understood to be human health beneficial and that are deficient in the average person who consumes a modern Western diet, whatever that means. For people who consume modern Western diets, these are nutrients which are health beneficial and deficient in the mean. Phosphorus, 11.7, 93.69. That's an 8-to-1 variation. Peak of the curve is here in the 27th percentile. Anybody here go to university, college? A couple people? Don't want to talk about it? No. Well, I went. I barely got out, but I barely graduated. But when I went to school, we had this thing called grades, and so anything after the final exams, the papers, everything else happened, right? You had the final number. I'm not sure you guys do that here in Europe. Yeah, sometimes. Okay. 90 and above was called an A. 80 to 89 was a B. 70 to 79 was a C. 60 to 69 was a D. 59 and below was an F. Here's 60. If we want to apply that standard to food, if the purpose of growing food is nutrition, if we've identified a spectrum of optimal and most rudimentary, and we probably haven't, this is probably not the best carrot possible. What percentage of the sample set is this? 90 plus, I would guess?
Yeah.
90+% of the sample set is a failing grade based on that, like, below the 60th percentile is a definition of failure. Yes?
There's a thought that comes to mind, but when relating it to grades, it is not relevant in terms of
human nutrition, whereas if you compare it to daily intake and recommended daily, I'm not sure how to translate that properly, but
yes.
how much you're supposed to eat on a daily basis, I would be much more curious with comparison to that, because maybe the carrots that are in the red and in the orange and the red area are fine. I can't tell that from these levels, so I'm curious, have you looked at it from that perspective as well?
As what the RDA is?
Well, we're saying, when we're comparing to grades, we're saying, well, it's in the let's say, insufficient amount, but school grades aren't relevant in this context, right? So I'm
No, it's a rough metaphor.
It
right.
should be in the context of daily intake recommendations, right?
And so all of these nutrients we're looking at are at insufficient levels in the ambient population in the West.
Yes, but that might have to do with the amount of carrots you're eating, and I would be curious, let's say eat 100 grams of the carrots that are in the red, then you still have enough on a daily basis. So that would be a comparison. I'm a nutritionist.
Yes,
so
perfect.
That's what comes to mind when you're saying, I'm very, very happy with what you're
yes,
yes.
But
that is what comes to my mind
yes.
in terms of comparing it to sufficient levels or not.
And is there a reason why people don't eat 100 grams of carrots a day?
Yes.
And would there be a reason why they might eat 100 grams of carrots a day? Here's the next couple of compounds. Here's antioxidants, which people understand. People may be familiar with the term antioxidant. These are generally health beneficial compounds. They're they cancel out oxidation, which is bad for you, generally causal in a lot of chronic disease. 4.92, 195. That's a 40-to-1 variation. These ones have 40 times as many antioxidants as these ones over here. Peak of the curve in the 17th percentile, 13th percentile. Here's polyphenols, the things we call flavor and aroma, those plant secondary metabolites, those things that nature evolved us with the sophisticated nutrient monitoring system to assess, those things which are understood to be powerfully anti-cancer, anti-heart disease, anti-diabetes, etc. 2.34, 4 to 9.75, that's a 20-to-1 variation. Peak of the curve in the 7th percentile. Now, there's a broader thesis here, which is that we are animals who have evolved sophisticated instincts with which we discern what is good and what is not good for us. And when you eat a carrot that is soapy, experienced as soapy, you don't want to eat it, you spit it out, especially if you're a 2-year-old child. Some people who are adults can convince themselves that it doesn't taste good, but it's good for them. But people are much more likely to eat things that actually have strong, powerful, aromatic flavor compounds. It seems that those things we call flavor and aroma are these strongly health beneficial compounds which only exist in plants at high levels when a whole suite of other biochemistry is in place. And the vast majority of the supply chain is below the 20th percentile. This is the nature of the data we found. These are curves, right? These are for anybody who knows statistics. These are natural distribution curves. This is not like you have to try to find the pattern. We're finding these curves, and they basically have long tails on the high end, which basically means most stuff is not as good as it could be. So this is the answer to the question about variation. There sure looks like there's variation. And all of this data is on our website, bionutrientinstitute.org, for those who want to look. We've got a bunch of papers and reports and things published there, and some stuff published in peer-reviewed journals. Okay, so here's a question about genetics. Some people say genetics is the thing that causes nutrient variation. In carrots, we got Napoli, Bolero, Nantes, Mokum, Romanceae, Rouge de Sang. These are different genetic types of carrot. This is measured in BQI, Bionutrient Quotient Index. This is that thing we just made up out of thin air, which is 6 elements and 2 compounds. Of the stuff we were looking at, we took 6 elements that were understood to be health beneficial, deficient in people's bodies, and these antioxidants and polyphenols, gave them each an equal weight, and said average it all together. So these are the carrots. This is not nutrient density. This is just something to begin to scale this thing. And by genetic, we see that Napoli's is a bunch of people in the bottom 20 percentile, some in the next 20th, a couple here in the 60 to 80. Bolero, somewhat similar. Nantes, not too much different. Mokum, showing the same kind of pattern. Romance, we're not really seeing any connection between genetic and nutrient level. What I see here is you can put that seed in this soil and get low levels of nutrients, and that soil get high levels of nutrients. we generally see this pattern across the board. The genetics do not seem to be a determinant factor in nutrient levels.
Is there in here a mix of ancestral seeds and, for example,
Yes.
hybrid seeds? etc.?
These are some open pollinators and some F1 hybrids.
Okay, interesting.
Yep. Here's by climate region. This is USDA climate regions. This is just the US. Most of our samples are from the US, not that many from Europe. Northeast, east, north, central, southeast, central, northwest, west, southwest. So we have, sandy and clayey. We've got hot and dry, cold and dry, hot and wet, cold and wet. A bunch of bad ones, a couple good ones, a bunch of bad ones, a couple good ones. Not really seeing any connection between soil type or climate zone and nutrient variation. We see the general pattern that occasionally people do a good job if more of these nutrients is good, but in general, most people are not. We're not seeing a direct causal relationship there. Here's point of purchase or sample source. This is from the farm. Remember, these are people who are like organic, regenerative, no-till, like biodynamic. These are people who are pretty damn sure they're good, right? We are better. We are sending in our samples because we know we're going to get good results. That's why most of these people sent in their samples, was because they were pretty sure they were good, right? Farm, you got 3 out of 118 in the top 20th percentile. Store, 2 out of 110 in the top 20th percentile. That one's actually better. That one's the best one we found was in the grocery store. Here's the garden. There's the garden right there. And here's farmer's market. Uncomfortable for some people.
Do you know anything about how much time there was between doing this, taking the sample and the product being harvested?
No. What we know is that the one thing that was kept uniform was that crops were taken from point of purchase. So some things take 2 weeks to get to point of purchase, some things take 1 day, some things take 3 months. The question was, what's this level of nutrients on the shelf for people? Is it uniform or does it vary, and by how much? What's important is, what do people have access to? We can tease out all kinds of other stuff later, but that's the first question is, are all carrots uniform? Your tongue tells you no. The science now, we can say, now we can trust our tongue, actually. Okay, this is really, this was uncomfortable for you, here we go. Certified organic. So this is called a violin plot. So where it's fattest is where like the preponderance of samples are. So it's definitely fattest in like the 35th to 40th percentile, we'll say. People who use cover crops, we're going to call that the 45th percentile is where it's fattest. No-till, pretty similar. People who do tillage, actually not a hell of a lot different. Kind of fatter on both sides. Here's organic, not certified. These are like the small local people that don't bother getting certified but are doing all the practices. Here's reference and none. That's grocery store, not organic. I'm just going to point this out. See where it's fat? Clearly fatter farther into the yellow. What does that mean? That means that some farmers operating on scale that are not organic are good farmers. Just because you're local and friendly doesn't mean your nutrient levels are high. There's two different things. One is that you're my neighbor, and the other one is that the nutrient levels are high. Right? We sometimes make the mistake of conflating these things. This is the purpose of science. This is why we do science, to sort of interrogate our dogmas and see where facts reside in relation to the storylines that are out there. Here's regenerative. This is the ism of the decade, right? Certainly looking a lot better than grocery store not organic, if nutrient levels are the thing that we're defining relative value on. Biodynamic is here, definitely looking better. Actually, there's local, which actually, I mean, if you average it out, local probably looks the best, but still it's got a complete variation, complete suite of variation there. People, that's greenhouse, like tillage. I don't have the graph. We're writing the paper now. It's currently in a heat map it's going to be a heat map. If anybody knows what a heat map is, the only thing that we found that correlated to this variation was levels of life in the soil. The level of function of the microbiome, the quantity, the diversity, the amount of people, microbes down there in the ground was the thing that connected to the nutritional caliber of the food. Just because you're organic does not mean you have high levels of soil life. Just because you're local does not mean you have high levels of soil life. Just because you do no-till does not mean you have high levels of soil life. There's a suite of environmental conditions, and good farmers are managing for that dynamic. Yes?
So then the resulting from this, if the goal to increase nutritional density is more life in the soil, is that the advice for farming practices, context, place specific?
It is context and place specific. And the point is that the objective of farming is to optimize levels of life in the soil. And you can take, and I mean, this is the sort of the community I was brought up in, which was permaculture has wisdom, biodynamics has wisdom, agroecology has wisdom, biochemistry has wisdom, microbiology has wisdom, indigenous perspectives have wisdom, right? We have all these different, I would call them religions or dogmas or frames of perspective, nuances, like, facets we can look at the gemstone through, but it's not about biodynamics or about biochemistry. It's about this thing, which is the nutritional caliber of the food. Yes?
Does it also matter which crop you have? So you now have everything is done on carrots, so I can imagine that for carrots you have a specific soil type that is optimal for carrots maybe?
No.
Other soils are also optimal for other?
This is what we see here. These are the different soil types. This is parts of the United States. We're not seeing any part of the United States that is showing this has better results or worse results in nutrient levels. This is one of the fallacies.
Okay. So you don't feel that the top three have much more yellow than the bottom four? Because I have the idea that bottom four is further to the left than the top three.
I don't see it skewed. I don't see a bunch of greens or a bunch of reds anywhere. It looks like most people are doing a mediocre job everywhere.
Okay.
I mean, this is preliminary data.
Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing any obvious pattern, let's put it that way. And we have 20 other crops that anybody who wants to can go interrogate our data sets and look. We have, again, 10,000 samples from 5 years from 2 continents. And we have all the metadata collected, and it's all there on Data Explorer, so anybody can go look at it. We've had people look at it. I'm just choosing one crop here, and I'm stating, if you go look, you'll find these patterns, but that data is completely open on our site for anybody to look at. But yes, I'm sorry, that's a sufficient answer to the question. So, okay. So this is what the conclusion was. So again, there are 3 questions. How big is variation? Does it exist? Is it significant? What causes it? It certainly looks like it's level of life in the soil. We can call it soil health as a standard for soil health. And 3, can you build a handheld meter that can test it? This is the thing we got published in Nature Science Communications, which is considered to be a legitimate scientific journal. And
I like the understatement. Sorry.
thank you. It's part of my presentation style. Yes.
It's non-Dutch.
It's non-Dutch. The self-deprecatory. Yes. This is it, right? Anybody remember the Apple II? The first personal computer, 1983 or whatever it was. Like, it could do Frogger. You remember that? Like it was quite. I had one. My parents were like, we had no TV in the house, but we had computers. I had an Apple II. Like, we played Frogger on the Apple II in the early 80s. And, like, this is an Apple II. This is not an iPhone. This is a rudimentary, it's got screws in here, it's 3D printed. It's got 10 LEDs is what it operates on. This is a small, grassroots, nonprofit educational organization with $25,000 that built this thing. Engineered it, right? And then with a little bit more money, we ran a bunch of lab work, calibrated it, proved in Nature Science Communications that it works to assess a suite of individual nutrients or compounds in certain crops at above a 0.8 R squared for people who know science, on biological matrices, that's considered to be pretty good. For carrots, it measures antioxidants. It can tell you where the level of antioxidants is in the carrots. It can't tell you the overall quality of a carrot. Critically important, it is not telling you the overall quality of a carrot. It is showing you that you can measure a nutrient in a carrot with a flash of light. It's a functioning proof of concept, right? So that's what we accomplished with this meter. For those who have had the misunderstanding, which is that we have built nutrient density testing meters, you are wrong. What we did is we proved that it's possible to have a consumer-priced, handheld, flash of light nutrient meter that can be used at point of purchase. So our 3 basic questions have all been answered in the affirmative. Nutrient variation is dramatic. It seems like it's caused by soil health, and it seems like consumer-priced handheld meters could be developed to measure nutrient levels in food. So the thesis then of using that enlightened self-interest of the consumer and the economic power to shift, to completely powerfully disrupt agriculture is a plausible theory of change. Yes.
What is your 100%?
The highest one we found.
So let's say that you are going to improve soil health later on,
Yeah.
and your 100% will shift
Yes.
according to the things that you are going to get in.
Absolutely.
And so how is that then real time adjusted, or how do you?
We stopped this. We did this work only to answer our 3 questions.
Yeah.
Is it possible to build a handheld meter that can test nutrient levels? Yes. Okay, great. This is never going to be the consumer unit. We are a grassroots organization. We are not a meter company. We have no intention of selling meters. We manufactured 300 of them and calibrated them all to each other and sold them all for $377 and built an app that connected to a phone with Bluetooth to show that it was a viable scenario, plausibly done, and then stopped. Because that's not our objective. Our objective is to figure out what the hell quality is. This is the whole point. What is nutrient density? And is the term nutrient density appropriate? Because if you talk to anybody in the nutrition space, they'll say no, it is not. It already means something. We have to find a new term for this thing if you guys want to engage, nutritionists in this conversation. You farmers, you people in the food movement, you may think that this nutrient density means something. It's kind of like the organic thing. Remember? Organic used to belong to scientists. It meant something, contains carbon. Organic chemistry was what organic meant. Then a bunch of radical, activists came along and built their own standards and said organic is a form of agriculture. And now, actually, most people think that organic means no synthetics. Doesn't mean it contains carbon. So we have that same creative tension right now in the middle of this conversation with nutritionists and those kind of people who are studying this literature, because nutrient density to them means average nutrients per calorie. All food is considered to be uniform. The basic premise is all kale is uniform. There is a certain number of nutrients per calorie in kale. There's a certain number of nutrients per calorie in rice. All rice is uniform. There's a certain number of nutrients per calorie in Coca-Cola. All Coca-Cola may be uniform. Therefore, rice is more nutrient dense than Coca-Cola, and kale is more nutrient dense than rice. This is what nutrient density means to people who are trained in nutrition. For those of you who are part of the food movement, and you don't know this, understand this. So there's actually a significant creative tension in this deeper conversation, which is, what the hell are we going to call this thing if we want to have an open collective space where everybody is welcome at the table? And some people say, don't use that word or term. It's 2 words. Anyway, I'll put that on the table and say, this is part of the feedback we're getting, part of what I think needs to be heard, needs to be understood, because most of the people in the room are not nutritionists, and not all nutritionists want to speak up and make that point, although I think it's an important one. So the real question here is, what is quality? How do you say 1 to 100 in any food, in potatoes, in carrots, in beef, etc.? I'm going to walk through here what we've done with beef over the past 4 years, and then that's the end of the presentation. Then we go to the conversation. So this is our model. This is basically, if you didn't want to read the handout, effectively this is what we're saying is how we should do this. What's that? Shortcut. Yes, this is the cliff notes, as it were. we said, okay, so the first three questions we got answers to, therefore it seems like it's worth the hassle of trying to figure out what 1 to 100 is, because maybe it's a plausible thing we can do. We chose beef because it's the food stuff that is produced with the largest ecological footprint. If we understand that agriculture, can have a negative or positive impact on the ecosystem, let's look at the thing that has the biggest impact. Cucumbers are nice, probably would have been easier to do cucumbers, but there's not a lot of land used in the production of cucumbers. Let's take on one of these big topics and then go into it. So it's taken us 4 years. It took a long time. It took a lot of money. It was a real hassle. Nobody done it, but we're basically done. And so here's how it went. Here's our thesis. The thesis was that if cows eat what cows have evolved to eat, they're better for you, they're more well, the impact on the ecosystem is better than if cows eat what they're being fed in an industrial model. We had samples from 4 continents, not all 6, but 4, but progress over 2. Farmers sent in a steak from 3 different animals. We started off looking at 800 different metabolites in each steak. We ended up with a little over 100 elements, enzymes, vitamins, fatty acids, polyphenols, terpenoids, series of different families of nutrients in the beef. We got a fecal sample from every herd, and we looked at over 200 different species in 2 kingdoms, the levels and the presence and the levels of each of these species. And we actually could look at some of the genetics of what the plants were as well by assessing the stool sample. We had the farmer send in the forage or the fodder, whatever the fodder was that the animals were eating in the last 90 days of life. We had them send in the soil that the crop that grew in, whether it was corn or it was a polyculture pasture or a monoculture pasture. We asked them a bunch of management questions about how the animals were raised. And finally, and not on the slide, we did a series of human health trials. So feeding trials to humans, eat this beef, see what happens to you, eat that beef, see what happens to you, and eat this not beef called, I think it was Impossible Burger, and see what happens to you. Interestingly, in the US, if you look on the back of a package of 100% grass-finished beef, corn-fed beef, and Impossible Burger, if you look at the back, it'll say the exact same level of nutrients. According to the government, grass-finished beef, corn-finished beef, and Impossible Burger are uniform materials. All carrots are considered to be uniform, right? All tomatoes are considered to be uniform. You know that some tomatoes taste differently than other tomatoes, and according to the government, they're all the same. Like, if you look at the number on the package, it's all the same. You could call that lying. I mean, what's a polite word for it? Like scientific dishonesty? Like incorrect?
Misleading, it's called in Europe.
Misleading. You have a nice way of saying that in Dutch?
I never say that it's testing, because it's not based on people not wanting to share, but to have all these different varieties of tomatoes tested is just a lot of money and a lot of work, which I don't have to tell you. So
Yeah.
misleading sounds something like someone would do that on purpose, and I don't think that's the case.
But if the data is showing a 20x variation,
New data.
we are a very small organization. Anybody who would use any level of, scientific rigor could have looked into the literature and found this data existed from hundreds of published studies previously. That these levels are very, we're not the only people to ever show this variation. The literature shows this stuff. It's just we've gone and looked at it together, and we're an activist organization like, hey, something's important here, pay attention, as opposed to most scientists who publish a paper and then write another paper, right? I mean, I don't mean to be offensive, but yeah, the literature has shown this for a long time. It's not that we haven't known. I apologize if I'm being abrasive, but.
Oh, you're not at all.
Okay.
We're Dutch, so.
Yeah, good.
All right. I'll dial it up a little bit. Trying to be polite. I'm in a foreign land. I don't know if I'm pissing people off or not.
If you were afraid that you were offensive, then you might have perceived me as offensive, which wasn't.
Offended. I was afraid you were offended. If you're in someone else's house, you don't want to be rude. So I'm not. This is not my country. I don't want to be obnoxious.
The purpose of the legislator is risk management, not
Yeah.
on
It's not
benefits. Yeah. So everything in the law has been constructed from risk management.
And the
Since
primary.
banking sector has started somewhere in 1920. So everything around packaging is about protection and not so much about promotion. And so everything that a breeder has to inform the government about is from the ideal situation, from market launches, and has nothing to do with the quality which is grown by farmers all around the world.
Yeah.
Just an example.
I would say, if we wanted to touch on that and go one step into it with more specificity, what's being protected is industry.
Well, not even industry, also healthcare. There is no
Disease
hospital
management?
in the Netherlands interested in preventing heart patients coming back to the hospital.
Industry.
Because it's not in
I call that industry.
Okay, you call that industry.
I call that,
public healthcare. Yeah.
if it was designed to optimize health, we could call it health care. But if it's designed to manage disease,
It's not even managed disease.
well, you want to maintain the level of disease as long as possible to optimize profits.
Symptom management.
Symptom management, whatever. I'm sorry. We don't want to get digressed, but I think, yes.
Repair instead of redesign.
Anyway, yes. Okay. I do want to try to appear to be calm and centered and empirical in my framing, even though, yes. It seems the data does guide us to certain conclusions. The scientific method is a beautiful thing, right? The scientific method is there to help us, be a lingua franca, to get through all the different, perspectives and say these are the facts on the ground. And so if you follow a lot of these things, you do begin to see patterns. The point was, we looked at biochemistry, microbiology, the fodder, the soil, the management, and human health trials, and we took this metadata, and we said, where's the patterns? Where's the patterns? Are there certain levels and ratios of nutrients in the meat that correlate with ecosystem function, that correlate with human health benefit, that correlate with animal welfare? And that's what we're proposing is our definition of nutrient density. And so right now, these papers are in their final, being written phase. And it looks like there's 8 different nutrients, which are going to be the proposed biomarkers for our 1 to 100 standard in beef. There's 2 elements, there's 2 vitamins, there's 2 fatty acids, and 2 secondary metabolites. And at levels and ratios, those are our definitions of 10, 30, 50, and 80 out of 100. So this is a basic experimental design method.
Did I understand correctly that the 8 nutrients that you're talking about is going to be possibly different for each?
Categorically, have to be.
Yeah, great.
Beef and pork and chicken and lamb are going to be different.
Yeah, let alone cucumbers.
Well, the question is, how many different kinds of beans are there? Are lentils different than dal? Are black beans and white turtle beans and striped,
Black-eyed beans.
Exactly. Where do we? No. If you want to do this honestly, where are the patterns? And we don't know yet because it's original research. No one's done it yet. That's the thing is we
Start somewhere.
have to start somewhere. So we started somewhere, and this is the experimental design. This is the theory. This is the sort of the framing. Location of farms. Look at them all.
White page.
There are a few more from Australia. They're mostly from North America. I think the UK was the only place in Europe we got samples from, but you can see a very broad diversity of geographic dynamics, and there's a full suite of feeding dynamics as well. So this was our first job at defining nutrient density. We are very clear about the vision we want to do going forward with all future crops is we want to be getting the same amount from Australia as from South America, as from North America, as from Africa, as from Europe, as from Asia. We want to be getting an equal distribution of wheat from 6 continents, of potatoes from 6 continents, of apples from 6 continents, different soil types, different management practices, different genetics. We want to do this systemically. We want to do categorically, organized, proactive, sample the global supply chain, define this for the planet. Apples for the planet. This is not for Europe. This is not for North America. This is for apples and potatoes. Okay, here's omega-6-3 ratios. This is a bit of an old slide, but still is maybe interesting to some degree. People might have heard about omega-3-6 ratios as a thing, and generally closer to 1-to-1 is considered to be better. Farther away is not. The animals that were eating green things until they died, to a large degree, sampled right in here in this little spot, averaged was 1.7 to 1. We have a few outliers here. This was the samples that were submitted as grass-fed beef. Actually, this came from a company that, this was during COVID, that was bringing in beef from Australia to the US. And the ship got stuck off the coast of LA because of all the things that were happening during COVID. And all the people were buying stuff and they ran out, so they went and bought beef from somewhere else. And that company that they bought beef from said that this was grass-fed beef. And they were suspicious. Although I challenge you to find a cow that never ate grass. So legally, technically, truthfully, they were grass-fed. They just weren't 100% grass-fed. So minor nuance in the technicalities, but they sent those samples in and they do not look like the rest. These samples do not look like these samples. And so we can use biochemistry to see between the lines of the claims, right? Anybody know what pasture finished means? Pasture finished, if you have it here in Europe,
Last
is,
few months in the pasture.
but you can dump all the grain you want on the pasture.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
as long as they were walking in the pasture.
As long as they were finished in the pasture, it says nothing about what they were fed. Although you who want to believe something is called confirmation bias. When you say pasture finished, that means it was out in the pasture eating grass. No,
It was out there, but
they were out there, but 90% of the fodder they were consuming was grain. So we have all this dynamics going on in industry where you can be technically legally true and effectively causing some meaningful dishonesty. I call it dishonesty. I mean, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so variation is dramatic right here in the cows that ate some grain. Like major variation from 3.5 to 14.4, but we can see the average is significantly higher. There is some meaningful variation there. Is just one compound set in what the animals were eating. If you use that as a baseline, which is what we can say before we have our papers published, we do see a beautiful connection between diversity and quality. If omega-3/6 ratio is your like preliminary definition for nutrient density for quality, diversity seems to be a very highly predictive factor. So, monoculture ryegrass, maybe it's better than corn. Ryegrass and clover, maybe it's better than ryegrass. But a properly biodiverse ecosystem seems to correlate with an overall better quality steak. So that is the conclusion of my presentation.
Also look at chemicals that people use or pesticides or...
We have not looked at toxins per se. We have looked at anti-nutrients, so like stress hormones and things like that. We've looked at elements like cadmium and lead and aluminum, which are sort of anti-nutritious.
Yeah.
We haven't looked at sort of like synthetic chemistry.
Okay.
It's all really a question of budget.
Yeah, okay.
All this is a question of budget. And we had to pick and choose and be discerning. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to do with the limited resources we've had as a small organization. What we're basically saying here now is, who thinks this is a good idea that should be done for other food? And can we come together around this project? And so what you've got in front of you here is this, what we're calling a draft treaty on the definition of nutrient density. And we're open to the changing of the term nutrient density. But the idea is it's a treaty, so we have to figure out what other word we're going to use. We are welcoming critique, commentary, suggestions, engagement. I'm not sure if you want to spend 5 minutes reading it now after my presentation. We could have a little bit of quiet. You could glance through it, and then we could have conversation. The whole point of this presentation, we're calling it a listening session. So you've been listening to me. That's not the point. The point is I listen to you. So if I can get that to begin happening, this is a good idea. Don't do this. Do you know these people? This is how you should do it. Think about this compound set. This would be a proper way to do human health trials. Meet these people. Here's some funders potentially. That's what we're looking for. The whole point of this presentation is to try to elicit your collective wisdom into improving this process. Comments, critiques. We did this once in Melbourne, outside of Melbourne. It was 15 people there. It was probably at least a third of them were researchers of one sort, agronomists or nutritionists, and we had an amazing conversation with a bunch of good pushback and suggestions. And then we did it again in a place called Byron Bay, which is much more sort of like a hippie sort of foodie place. There was 30 people there, and it was a bunch of Q&A. It was like, great. They got to answer a bunch more questions and have more nuance, but we didn't really get anywhere near as much value out of that. So I don't want to say that don't ask questions, but I want to say if you can, make suggestions or offer like engagement on the process. If it's not clear, certainly ask questions. But what we're looking for is that kind of, yeah.
I have a question.
It's okay. It's okay. Yes, yes.
Nutrient density is connected to soil life, and you do a respiration test. It's kind of a simple test.
Yeah.
Is a respiration test then strong enough to persuade people to join this?
Very good question.
Yeah.
The respiration we did was part of our preliminary work.
Yeah.
When we did the microbiome assays for the beef,
Yeah.
we looked at 200 different species,
Okay.
each one individually assessed in presence and quantity across multiple kingdoms.
Yeah.
So our thought is that microbiome is critically important and that we absolutely should be prioritizing
Yeah,
that
because
as an
I say
assessment.
respiration test, I can imagine that people say, well, that's not
That was phase one.
Okay.
That was phase one
Yeah.
to see whether this project is worth doing in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So those first slides I showed you about the individual nutrient variation, that was all phase one, which was just proof of concept. It's the beef stuff that I spent less time on, which is the model for this project. But good point. Yes, that respiration is not sufficient.
How did you analyze soil life? Is it a PLFA test or?
In this case, we didn't because it was beef. We assessed their manure
Okay.
because we're looking at the microbiome of the thing, which is the poop, not the soil.
Is that also how we measure the human health effects?
No, the human health was measured with inflammation response.
Information.
So we took a baseline, then we fed them the grass-fed beef, and 1, 3, and 5 hours measured their blood and urine for inflammation markers, and saw that what happened with the grass-fed beef, the corn-fed beef, and the Impossible Burger. And guess what happened? The Impossible Burger did not perform well.
Yeah, you mentioned the terminology of the nutrient density itself.
Yeah.
And for me, my background is in event management, and there it's all about communication and
Yes.
in the end about target groups.
Yes.
So the terminology that you want to use
Yes.
should be applicable or understandable by the target group that you would like to address. And
Which is
what
buyers of food.
Yeah, is that then the consumer that you have, the
Yes.
end consumer in mind? Yeah. And
Yes.
sometimes it's not even the terminology, but it could also be a subline identifying the terminology as well.
And any and all suggestions in this regard are extremely welcome.
Yeah.
Anybody who's got a proposal for what we call this thing, like we are taking
I think
suggestions.
it will be a challenge. To
Go home
find
and think about it,
one word,
wake up and
but to identify it.
find an acronym
Yeah.
that, it's like radar or whatever, like stands for something.
Yeah.
We're completely open to it.
The terminology should be short, but then to have a great understanding, a subline or some definition could help to
Yes.
identify it further.
And we are not marketing geniuses.
Yeah.
So people such as
Yeah,
yourself,
there
we're
you need to-
very welcome. Yes.
Yeah, my sheet is full, so my
Awesome.
question is, I'm never gonna share everything here because we're filling the whole hour. So do you have another way of maybe sharing some thoughts and ideas, and you should meet these people, or what?
So if you go to the website, which should be on the back page, which is bionutrientinstitute.org/treaty, there's a bunch of ways to engage. And there's a form right there which says submit your comments. And what's about to be up there, either tomorrow or the next day, is going to be a living Google Doc where you can submit your comments on the side of the document in real time. And we'll keep all those records for people to review. We'll go through the process and okay, these are obvious, like change that or change that. But if there's open questions, they'll be sitting there for everyone to engage. So yes, we expect the primary engagement is going to be, we're recording this and literally like this draft you've got is different than the one we had in Melbourne, different than the one we had in, because of the engagements that came. Like, oh, good point. Oh, we should have, yes, change that. So obvious stuff, we'll just change it right away. But please, if you could go online, and if you don't want to do that, just give us your page and we'll write it down. Yes, thank you.
I also have some.
If you have some specific things.
Yeah, something that came to mind when you talk about the result of the beef comparisons.
Yeah.
Something that we see in plant research is when we look at inflammation levels, they sometimes go up with when people eat plants, and the idea behind that is that there's a process of hormesis where there's compounds in the plants that are initially pro-inflammatory, but the fact that they are pro-inflammatory in the short term eventually
triggers like an overreaction, which ends up being protective, and that's called hormesis.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you start doing these human trials with plants, don't be shocked if you also find negative results for something that you would suppose to be good. So it's just something I want to mention to be aware of in your human trials.
So I was just speaking at this thing called the Goodwood Summit in the UK a couple days ago, and one of the people on stage with me was like a big blah 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 microbiome blah blah researcher, and he was like, I've got some suggestions for how you should do human health trials. I said, awesome. We've got a 2-hour call scheduled. Like, I know like farming to some decent degree. I don't know human health trials. Like, I've got a few people who I know have got leads, who have got suggestions, but I'll take your suggestion, don't do that. Or I'd really love a suggestion, do this, or who we should talk to. Like, because we're operating with $1 million, I didn't say this, $1.25 million, 1.25 US per crop is our budget. If it ends up being more than that, we'll know based on what the sample costs per et cetera, ends up being. So if it ends up being 1.5 or 1.75 or whatever, in general, one of the biggest issues that I'm concerned about is being able to do human health trials or some sufficient version of a human health trial that is at all within reason as far as cost to help give us this basic level of definition. I think that's a critical, so we really need guidance on how we should do these human health trials. And if it's different for beans and for rice and for cucumbers, if you know anybody or anybody knows anybody, that's critically important information. I will say also, the vision is that this is a stake in the ground when we get done. This is a first baseline definition, that we publish it, that we inspire instrumentation companies to calibrate instruments to this and to sell them, and that inspires governments and serious, proper research funds to deepen this definition process. We do not think this is the final be-all and end-all. We think this is the beginning, or we hope this is the beginning of a process of global consensus around this, but giving people the power to choose. Yeah. So, go, yes.
Hi, Mark. Maybe I missed it, but I totally missed the Apple II innovation process in here. Do you want to get to a product in the end?
We do not.
Which I can measure.
We want to publish a definition
Yeah.
that anybody who makes meters and wants to sell them can calibrate their meter to. It looks like the end game vision is going to be one of the cameras in your phone. From everything we understand, it looks like if Apple wanted to, they could put inside their phone a mini spectrometer, and then you'd have to buy the new Apple 20, and you could do it as an app on your phone, and so could Samsung, and so could Google. It looks like from the consumer, from the technological understanding we have, there will not need to be a separate standalone meter for the general consumer. The capacity for these things to do it is there. So, but we do not. We are an NGO whose mission is to define this, not to sell products. Yes, we want to inspire people.
Yeah, is that your mission, or is it your mission to get to a system where people eat healthy food?
Our mission is to cause food to be better for everyone on the planet, year after year after year, getting better and better and better. And we think that we can hack economic incentive to accomplish that. And we think if we are on both sides of the equation, defining the definition and selling it, you shouldn't trust us.
Yeah, because if you have like a higher nutritional value in the products, you also need less quantity and then less production, and that's better for the environment.
It sure looks like there's this thing called overfed and undernourished.
Yeah.
Empty calories.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%.
It
So.
goes further than just.
Yep.
Yeah, what I said before, if I look at the analysis, the things you want to analyze,
Mm-hmm.
something like glyphosate residue, just to check also how much the impact is of the negative
Yeah.
next to all the positives.
Yep.
If you can see if there's a difference in growing also,
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest to,
You propose a toxicology scan.
yes, yes.
Yeah, at least for a subset.
Yes.
So interestingly, that whole suite of nutrients,
Mhm.
we think we've got a quote for not much more than $200 to do that complete scan.
Yeah.
And toxicology assessments in general are dramatically more
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah,
So perhaps a subset, but we'll capture that. Thank you. Yeah. All this has to, we take the suggestions and then we do the budgets,
yeah.
and then we say, okay, who's raising how much money?
Yeah, because there's so much to do about this
Yeah.
this part, and if we don't put it in here, then still is there a question, how does that work with the nutrient density?
Yeah.
I think it would be
Yeah.
for me.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. Yes.
So I have a bit of a different background in data and
Great.
more storytelling, and I was triggered by your question as well about if we look at the parallel with the grading system.
Yeah.
Do we know whether that's true or not? Is it really bad? Or and I was thinking, if you look at the compounds that you've analyzed right now, if you would compose a hypothetical diet for a week, you would say it's 200 grams of this every day for breakfast, or 100. Next day you eat this. If you then look at the median of all the figures that you've pulled up, then you can say something about how high would levels of particular nutrients be, and
Mhm.
would that lead to deficits? And if you have a deficit of those nutrients, can we link that to particular diseases?
Yeah.
So that might be a different way of looking at it than just saying.
I think I hear what you're saying. We can take that suggestion. The framing we've always had has been, we're not going to judge what you should or shouldn't eat. Some people eat meat, some people don't. Some people eat dairy, some people don't. Some people eat grain, some people don't. Our question is, if you were to say what's the best wheat berry and the worst wheat berry, how would you characterize those? And obviously everyone's bodies are unique and they've got their own epigenetic dynamics, and so you can't really propose a uniform diet for anyone.
No, but it would just be hypothetical. Example, what you generally would buy in a supermarket is mediocre or less, or even worse.
I don't think we're framing it on the average proposed theoretical diet. We're saying, let's take a spectrum of carrots and say, can we make any formal decisions about this is better, this is worse, and to what level of gradation can we? I think that's
also go to the discussion about what is the preferred diet.
yes, which is a complete.
You cannot go there.
Lots of people are there. There's lots of people in that conversation, and there's no one in this conversation.
In this study, I don't think you can go there.
No.
I understand what you're saying about an
Yeah.
average diet and saying, well,
Yes.
this is how we make it better. But this is about the quality of foodstuffs.
Yes.
And obviously you're trying to do your best to get the most quality in one product, when what we're eating is not one product.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the way it is. I mean, you cannot.
But you can question whether that's necessary, whether you have to have the best composition.
Because it's going back to the cause, which is soil quality actually, and the potential of using microbiology to improve everything. So it's not even about the quality of the foodstuffs, it's actually about the origin of the quality. And
Or it's
that's
all connected.
the driver in the end.
It's one health.
Yeah.
Ecosystem function is human health, is reversing the SD, curing all the SDGs, like all these things. The thesis is that this is all one,
Yeah.
and that this is a lens and a way to use the scientific method.
And the problem with nutrient
to align the
density,
market.
there are several, but just to be blunt, is that you think that the more nutrients are in there, the better.
Yeah.
But that's actually not the case.
No.
So it's like a
We're thinking
nutrient
levels in
quality density instead of nutrient density, because you are communicating something like there should be more nutrients. But as we know in several other studies, that you can improve the calcium of one product to make animal welfare better, but then you get into other problems because other nutrients will be less, and then there is a disbalance. So there actually should be something like a nutrient balance quality in this whole communication, because if not, you're just saying more is better, which is not the case.
That is not what we're saying, right?
No,
we're saying that's what the term is.
Density says.
When
It should be more dense.
So imagine this, sort of Houten discolored 27-year-olds was like, there's got to be there's got to be a word for this. And I went and talked to like 5 people, and that was the thing that bubbled up. So that was the word I started using. And then 3 years later, after saying it to a lot of people, somebody who's a nutritionist said, hey, by the way, did you know that word already means something? I was like, no. I was like, oh shit. I stopped using it for about 4 years. Too late. Cat was out of the bag.
Yes.
Everybody was using the term nutrient density. And so in this whole world, if you aren't in the agricultural like food movement space, you may not know that there's a whole bunch of people using this term nutrient density right now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a Rorschach test. Like it means something different to everybody, kind of like regenerative or whatever. And so it is a word that is being used, a term. I completely agree with you. It is not about more. It is about balance.
Yeah.
And that is everything that we seem to understand. It's about levels and ratios and balance. And perhaps it's more of certain things like the secondary metabolites, but that only happens when certain other things are in balance. We don't know. I think I can say we don't know. And that's what is exciting about this, is it does seem like it's original research. Like we don't think we have this overlay of microbiome against human health results, against biochemistry, against agronomy, against soil metrics. Like I don't think anybody ever has done this holistic way of looking at it and just collect the data and see what patterns are shown. Like that to me is exciting. That's real science. Like we're not going to put our finger on the scale. We're going to do a good job of trying to define which metrics we're assessing and then be honest about what we find and let people, have at it. Like I see this pattern, I see that pattern. Is there consensus or is there not? We might not find anything, right? That's the exciting thing. We might not find anything. We think we're probably going to, but who knows? Anyway, yes.
Are you including hybridization of crops?
Yes, absolutely. Full genetic spectrum.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's also registered, so you know where the density comes from.
We want to ensure that we assess a suite of different genetics,
Okay.
a suite of different soil types, a suite of different management practices, different microbiomes, different climate zones, different continents. We want to make sure as broad a diversity of environmental conditions as possible are captured, so we're really trying to identify the scale of variation. Yes?
Yeah, just on those variables, I think something that we are having to put an extra test on our nutrient testing this year is that time from harvest to the point of purchase.
Yeah.
So that issue being that you could have a supermarket, someone could go in with a meter, you've got a conventional field next door, carrots come straight in the next day,
Yeah.
and a regenerative field it's been flown halfway around the States or whatever,
Yeah.
months later it's there. And so whether the farmer might put the work in differently on his soil microbiome, at the point of purchase, the conventional might actually come up better.
What's most relevant to the consumer?
Well, there you go. What's most relevant to the consumer? But then that's the difficulty linking it back to regenerative agriculture.
Well, regenerative is like Catholic. Like there's brilliant, amazing, pure, beautiful Catholics and complete hypocrites. Right?
This is true. But I suppose I'm thinking
So that's the thing, is it's an insufficient definition.
It is. But from the ethos that they are regenerating.
Catholics have an ethos, apparently, that they follow the principles of Christ, but how many were involved in the Crusades?
But is the storage identical always? Like, are there
No.
rules for storage things?
It's
So I
a-
think all of these different things from harvesting until it actually ends up with the consumer on the plate. And I think for me the difficulty with making the link to health is that there are so many steps also afterwards. So how are you cooking? How are you
That's why
putting
this is
things
honest,
together?
because it's
Yeah.
going to measure the quality as it is
At the point, yeah.
placed in
Yeah, but then
the chain, so you don't need to communicate all
It's
of
the
the
first
farming
step.
systems and the
Yeah.
genetics and so because you just have as is.
But it's not, if you are going to measure health in clinical studies, then you are not only there. So then you have so much other things that are in place. So I really have difficulties in understanding what is the purpose of you want to show this in health for human studies, because I think it's two totally different things.
Because if we don't have a set of biomarkers that correlate with health benefit versus less health benefit, the foundational purpose of the definition is missed. What we want to do is we want to help people who buy food discern the thing that will cause their families to be most well.
Yeah,
Of the
I think
choices
only
on
thing
the-
you are saying is you need to know more about the product once you have determine the health effect. That's
Yeah.
the only thing you're saying. So that's the only thing that is lacking, because it's not about the
But that's-
origin, it's including where did it come from in the end.
But that's supply chain transparency.
Yeah,
That's an whole
exactly.
different question.
Yeah.
No, but that's also
There's a lot of good science.
It's a fact, but it's an all new project.
Well, no, but I mean, this is
There are so many companies working on supply chains.
the universities have studied this and done really good research.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that the scientists have really figured out, is how to do as good a job as possible as soon as it's harvested to keep it as good as possible to the shelf. That is pretty well dialed in. The problem is what's being harvested is being harvested at the 18th percentile. So you can only maintain from there.
And
We're not harvesting at the 80th percentile.
If there was a significant difference between how long it takes to get from harvest to shelf, then local would be way off the scale, and it's not showing any variation. It's comparable to virtually ever, slightly
Well,
better.
it was actually a little bit,
better.
local was better than anything
Better.
else. I would say that
Then-
might have to do with ripeness. Like if you pick a tomato ripe, it's gonna be, or a peach. Anybody ever picked a peach unripe? And then let it sit for a week and a half versus picking a peach ripe? It's definitely better when you pick it ripe. Tomatoes are better when you pick them ripe. So we should think that if you actually have local farmers doing a good job, and they're being picked, that crops are being picked ripe, that would outcompete something coming from far away, because the logistics of shipping are such that it's not advantageous to pick certain things ripe. Did you have something?
No, I was thinking, listening to your feedback then, I think the feedback is just, if there are already known health markers, why do you need to do the clinical yourself as well? Because if you're tying it into known markers, then this is basically adding a layer onto the research that is extremely complex, is costly, is going to get you into territories of how do you know.
Are there known health markers? Can somebody tell me all the health markers for beans and cucumbers and rice? If you can, you're going to save us a lot of money, and I really, really want to meet you and talk to you. And I'll come fly over to your house because you'll save me millions of dollars. I'm completely serious. This is what we don't know this. As our small organization, we've been doing a lot, and there's some things we just don't know. So for those who do, please write in big letters, all capitals, give me your phone number afterwards. Like, I really want to know if any way this can be simplified, but it has to have an integrity. It has to be like beyond reproach. Yes, thank you.
I would strongly suggest then as an intermediate point, because I think we all agree on the why that is necessary and how it relates to the rest of the topic, is to take a short pause and really go into the literature for which nutrients we have this information and for which we don't. Because I think investing the money for the nutrients and the crops that we don't have this information yet are highly relevant, but for a part we do. I'm pretty sure we do for a part, and that could save you a lot of money. So that would be, I think, the advice to look at that in detail first.
So I'm not sure if you looked at the timeline.
Not in that much detail. Apparently.
It starts with experimental design.
Yes, well, that is an important point then. Yeah.
The whole thing is we don't actually start doing anything until we've done experimental design, until we've actually engaged thoughtful people to develop the process, which is going to take time, it's going to take money, and it has to be serious. And so we're trying to get as much as we can done preliminarily, and any insights or suggestions, like go look over here, talk to this group, here's a book you should know. This is a group of researchers that'll happily volunteer. Like, oh my God, I would say I'd kiss you, but I might take it the wrong way. Like, give you a big hug if you can help me find those things out.
Scale, I know research that has been done.
Brilliant.
So there's some,
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, anything you know or anything anybody does know is better than nothing. Yeah.
Are you linking? Can you access the data? I know there's the periodic food table initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Are they able to share what they have or not? I don't know.
They have done almost nothing and blown $80 million doing it.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Periodic Table of Food Initiative, the American Heart Association and Rockefeller and Wageningen. And no, they're completely bankrupt. They've spent all their money and they're running around looking for more money, and no one's wanting to give it to them because they just blew through 80 million and have done nothing because the experimental design was shit. It was predicated on a series of assumptions which were incorrect. Actually, I shouldn't. I'm on the
So
record.
you're going to be sharing with the other way then?
I met them in D.C. at the Rockefeller Institute Foundation at the FAR thing, and they were like, "Hey, could you give us some of that beef data? Because maybe we could use it to raise some more money." Literally. I'm happy to work with them. I talked to them before they started. I'm like, guys, you're doing something stupid. Can we work together? But they're like, you're just a little nonprofit. We're going to go work with Wageningen, and we're going to go work with, Davis, and we're going to work with all the proper credentialed people. I'm like, what's your rationale? What's your actual question you're trying to answer? It wasn't properly thought through. There wasn't actually a clear strategic vision, I don't think. Anyway, yeah. Be careful what I say on the record. This is being recorded. It's going to be public. Sorry.
As just input for the treaty, because I think what's really interesting here is that we're looking for a way to correlate soil health, planetary health with human health, and for the mission of improving quality in the food supply chain.
Yeah.
It's important to have an indicator for this. I would suggest adding a chapter perhaps to the treaty for once that indicator is there. How is it getting rolled out to really make sure the effectiveness of farming is improving and that behaviors are changing? So how is this going to influence and educate the next generation of agronomists, of chefs, of doctors?
What's the theory of change, the
So
strategic
that's the
implementation?
theory. Once the measure is there, how are we going to train, educate, mobilize? And so I would advise to, with this
Yes.
treaty, add this as a chapter and get those representatives that can speak for these universities, for the chefs, schools,
Yep.
etc., to take this along in their future programming.
I think it makes a ton of sense to say, so what? How do we think this is going to go?
Exactly.
What's our vision? Which I've got a lot of answers for, but they're not written down there.
No, yeah, no, that's
Yes, thank you
absolutely
very
good.
much. Great
And
suggestion.
I also understand the argument of that proving that eating more nutritionally dense carrots, sorry to use the term still, will improve your health, because proving that it will improve your health is so difficult because of all the factors.
Yeah.
But if we just all rally behind the fact that healthier soils are better for everyone, then I think it still makes a lot of sense to work on this indicator.
The way I say it is, if you're going to eat a tomato, eat a tomato that's better for you. If you're going to eat a carrot, eat a carrot that's better for you. If you're going to eat rice that's better for you. If you're going to eat potatoes that are better for you.
And then you still have to decide whether you drink alcohol or smoke or exercise.
Or whatever, but like if you have a selection of choices, for me I think the visceral driver is going to be parents thinking about their children. I think that's really the power in this, is people's kids are not well and they're not okay with it. And so if we can help them make some kind of a decision which is actually based on someone they can trust, that's going to be I think that's really the power behind the scene here, is the incentive of the parent. But yes.
Could I possibly speak to that point?
Which one?
Martin's
Sure.
point on how to reward the practices, the shifted practices of land management. In terms of nutrient density, it is basically around, we see nutrient density, or I see nutrient density as a metric that can reward the changes in land management practices that are better suited for the environment. It actually helps tick boxes for environmental and people's health. To the point that recently RFK announced with the Brooke Rollins, who's the for the agriculture
Secretary
in
of
the
Ag.
US, she about how up until now they've been subsidising foods that aren't necessarily foods that make us sick, and then end up paying the price after the fact. And instead they're focusing on regenerative agriculture to improving the health of the soil, to improve the health of the people. And to me that sounds like a shift towards more of the wellbeing economy framework, which then it takes into account the environmental and social factors, which also feeds into corporate reporting. So talking to your point around adding a chapter about how we can quantify or measure the shift, or incentivize. If anyone has any expertise in that realm, please feel free to speak up and bring that forward in comments. We'd love to hear that, because that's particularly pertinent. Yeah.
Cool. Yes.
I'm still wondering a bit about soil health. We're talking a lot about it.
Yeah.
What is the current idea or the current experimental design about measuring soil health? Is it translated to soil life, amount of soil life, and then how are you going to measure?
This is exactly an open question.
Yeah.
Which metrics are we measuring, and how much
Yeah.
are we spending on it? There's 85 different ways of measuring soil, minerals. There's, which definition of organic matter or carbon or stable carbon or unstable carbon, which kingdoms are we looking at? These are completely open topics for people's suggestion. I recommend this lab and this assessment for this reason at this cost. This is it. Like, you got an idea, write it down, submit it. People can, yay or nay it.
Yeah.
I will say one issue is with doing samples from 6 continents, because we really do want to have complete diversity from the planet. Getting samples of soil and manure and stuff from around the planet to one country, to one lab, is a pain in the butt. So that's a significant logistical hurdle. And when you do different labs in different countries, they have different, even though they say they're doing the same thing, you get different results. So this is another one of the things we're considering and looking at and trying to contemplate what are the logistics and how do we get things into a -80 and ship them internationally with all the permits, make sure they don't get stuck in customs so they all rot, because that's happened with the beef project. It was a real logistical hurdle. But yeah, these are...
Soil health as a concept is even as big as nutrient density. So
What is soil health?
What is soil
the first
health?
question.
Yeah, there's so many projects going on at the same time at the moment.
Yeah.
And they're all going in different directions.
Completely open question. Granted, yes.
For me, the first assessment is the biodiversity. If you just look at the grass and it's only grass and clover, then you know that this farmer is still old school, right?
And how are you growing carrots?
But he's really very serious farming.
If you're growing carrots,
but
are you
he's
looking
just not aware that he should, because a lot of farmers are very anxious to change, because they will be, they will be separate from the group.
So what
That
we're
means
proposing...
people will not talk to you during parties and things like that. That's really what's happening.
Peer pressure, you mean? Yeah.
Yes, I think the proposal is that we get a diversity of samples from across an entirely varied set of environmental conditions, and we see if the carrot patch that has 5 other families of plants growing in it, which some people might call weeds,
exactly,
is actually producing the carrots with the highest level of nutrients. If we can show that not weeding your carrots causes them to be more nutritious, and you'll get a premium for them, and you won't, and people won't buy your carrots if you weed them too much.
Then Albert Heijn can't manage it though, on this moment.
What's that?
Albert Heijn can't manage it.
Retailers, he's talking about
Not yet.
What do you mean?
So we rise up paprikas, etc., with a higher nutrition, and then we have a full load of nutrition paprika, and they can sell.
Because you don't have a metric for assessing.
Right. Metric.
Yeah.
My point is, the whole idea is, if there's an instrument in your hand called a phone, which you open up the app.
We have this instrument, and it is an institute, there's NOMEC, they measure everything. They make an
in the consumer's hand?
It costs you 400 euros per assessment, so better take a bricks meter.
It's not a flash of light. It's not a flash of light.
Talking about at the retail, there's no way you can have a separate segment to valorize what you have done to improve the nutrient.
I'm saying that's what we don't
but
have.
Let's first get from the 21 crops or 25.
Yeah.
Which crops are you going to choose?
That's on the list. We've got a proposed list based on staples, because we think staples are important. But if somebody else says, "Hey, I got the blueberry farmers that are willing to give us $1.5 million," guess what we're going to do?
That's the point I wanted to.
If somebody can bring money to the table, for a specific purpose, as long as it's done in this ethos with this experimental design, first come, first served. Like, there's no reason why we have to do sweet potatoes first as before rice or whatever. The whole point is, we're a small organization. We're trying to open this conversation up and say, who wants to take collective ownership in this? Is it possible that there could be a coalition of people who say, this is important, I want to be part of it, and this is, So yes, I appreciate everyone's engagement. This is great
Yeah.
in and of itself. Yes.
On the topic that we were discussing, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna try and formulate this right. Right now, I completely agree, it's difficult to valorize, to get the amount of money that something is really worth based on nutrients. And if we were going to something built into your phone, there is a risk of not only retailers but also producers feeling punished because someone can go into the store and they have their
Yep.
product and then it's like, oh, this is a bad product. And are
Yep.
you considering discussing with either, in Dutch it's called veiling, the
Auctions.
the auctions where they have,
Yes.
let's say, the criteria of the 4, 3, 2, 1, how
Yes.
a food is graded, and also maybe the retailers, Albert Heijn in Dutch is a really, really
Yeah.
big store, where maybe, I don't know, the measuring system you have could be built into the scanning system, whereby a product is worth more once it is, you know, you scan it for the weight, and then it's also worth a bit more if the values are. Is that that's of course a very far-fetched futuristic idea, but maybe in terms of partnerships, this is the route to kind of.
There was I think I got what you're saying.
I just get a really disturbing vision of people running to the supermarket in the morning and trying to find that carrot that has the most nutrients and killing the other people before they get
So-
to the.
So a couple things.
cashier.
A couple things. For starters,
I know what you mean. But
let me-
this is where it can go. You know, some people get really crazy about.
let me say a
quality.
few things. For starters, I got into all this thing as a farmer because I had enough free time to go blow my mouth off after I was making my living because my cost of production went down and my quality was high. There is absolutely no reason that high quality food has to cost more. In fact, the general dynamic is when it's the microbes doing the job of growing the food, your cost of production is lower. Effectively, what's going to happen is we're going to outcompete the application of fertilizer, insecticides, fungicides, and herbicides. It's actually economically advantageous for the farmer to support the microbiome to do the work of production because their cost of production is lower, their pack out rates are higher, the shelf life is better, etc. So for anybody who's concerned about price points and everything else, what I see here is ambient level of nutrient levels for food for everybody on the planet being higher because farmers begin to be incentivized to work with nature and not to purchase things from chemistry companies. When it comes to the packers, the buyers, the wholesalers, the retailers, there are companies that have come funded. There's one that came out of MIT, bunch of money. Their business model was to sell a meter that could measure nutrient levels to retailers, Walmart, Whole Foods, things like that. They went bankrupt because once they had built the meter and had made it and calibrated it and shared it with Whole Foods and Walmart, Whole Foods and Walmart said, there's no possible chance we want anybody to know what the nature of our supply chain is. Because of what I showed you before, because the ambient level of nutrients is so low. So,
And that's why this measuring device is in the hands of the consumer.
I
not
think
driven by the industry.
if we can have it in the consumer who actually has the incentive for the best quality, and that's going to do the pull through. What happens in California if there's, it's strawberry season, and this packing house can bring in 10, there's farmers that can bring in 10 truckloads of strawberries today, and there's a demand for 7 loads of strawberries from the buyers. 3 loads of strawberries don't get taken into the packing house. This is what happens right now. A lot of strawberries are not picked. They're just chucked. The farmers don't sell them. They lose it. They write it off. My thought is the market is a real thing. It happens. Decisions are made. If we can incentivize the market to focus on nutritional caliber as the primary reason by which purchasing decisions are made all the way through the entire supply chain, what that's going to do is incentivize farmers to begin competing with each other to optimize soil health, nutrient levels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I don't know. You never know when you start doing something what all the unforeseen repercussions are going to be, and something that's completely well-meaning can have horrible, atrocious outcomes. So I'm completely, aware of that. I could be causing some major problems with all my
Can it get worse?
well-meaning inspiration. What's that?
Can it get worse than it is now?
Sure. There's genocide's only happening in Gaza, and you know it could happen lots of places.
I think if they are going to be able to show that this is a higher density crop, then also the supermarkets can say, okay, for now I'm going to raise the price of this one because I see it has more value to my customers, so I'm going to increase the price. So it's not even that the farmer has to put a higher price on it. So I think also.
Or the farmers can be local and they can sell directly to the consumers, and everything does not have to go through 3 layers of middle bureaucracy, corporate profit taking. We could go to short supply chains. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities and repercussions here.
But they already, the big parties already use rigs, and they also in the Netherlands, they really know what is quality, only they don't want the consumers to know.
And they know how low their quality is. Yeah. They know how low their quality is already.
Yeah, they know what the quality is.
But we had a couple of these short chain companies already in Holland, like Herenboer, you know, local to local. And for example, 1 month ago, the Herenboer is going bankruptcy.
No,
So there's now another good.
The overall organization.
So it is not easy to
Just,
bring it up.
I will say, as a small local farmer,
I know, but that is
I can't make a living. I can't make a living when I have pests and insects eating my plants because I'm a bad farmer.
I did the farm in Michigan by the family Shabbat, with tomatoes. Yeah? We raised the production twice with the half of the cost. And he's bio-organic. So we have a bounce of customers that wants to buy directly. You know that. Hello, that is Michigan. That are not 100 customers, 10,000 customers. So he make a lot of money. That's not Holland. Not yet.
I don't know. Yeah, you guys are backward and behind the times, I guess.
Yeah.
Here you were thinking you're progressive. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
You can ask also to Mark.
Isn't it about changing the discussion? Because there are, in the Netherlands, there are a lot of people with enough money. There are obviously a lot of people with not enough money. But in general, there are a big chunk of people with enough money. So let's spend that money on our own health and eating healthy food. So we have to somebody has to change the discussion. And that's how, through this movement, we want to change the discussion. What are we prioritizing? That it's logical if you have 5 minutes to think about it, that soil health is linked to the plant that's growing in it, and the plant that's been grown is linked to your own health, but it's about making those connections. And if people are told the story, allowed to hear the story, then you can give them the opportunity to
choose or not choose.
And
this is
product. Perhaps. I was at the discussion last week, and some people are just not interested, even though it's about health. So we're amongst the believers here. So this will help to become transparent, so it will make it more easy. But sometimes I think there's wishful thinking that we can change the world just because we can prove it's like this. Yeah, because they want to have beefy and they want to have nice sneakers, and they're not interested in what carrot they're eating. Because they will not even eat the carrot.
But there are a lot of people that are convinced
it's not helping you, but anyway.
But I think it is not enough.
I've been in boardrooms with some, big multinational global corporate food companies, like big ones, and they are like, we've done our market research. Maybe it's just in the U.S. where people are a lot sicker than they are in the Netherlands.
We're already also 2/3 are obese. So I mean, it's everywhere a disaster.
I'm sorry. You guys look not like Americans.
We're amongst the believers here.
I was just in Schiphol. I've been in this country. I'm sorry. This is not the U.S. The level of health dysfunction in this country is not like the U.S.
True, but we're getting there.
Right. And so I can report to you from the future. I can report to you from the future what the big corporates' market research is telling them. And that is that the consumers want flavor, nutrition, and price. Flavor, nutrition, and price in almost equal quantities. 25%, 26%, 25% out of 100. Out of all the things that consumers want, if you watch mothers in the grocery store reading I mean, there is a visceral, this is what MAHA is, right? You guys have heard about MAHA? Make America Healthy Again?
Yeah.
This is apparently the strongest political force in the US right now. People are, like, they've written off politics. Like, they're all completely rigged, right? It's whatever, bought, sold, and paid for. All we care about is the fact that our children are sick.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. And the corporates that are selling food have done their market research, and they understand that they're going to get market increases in market share if they have a thing that the people think is more nutritious. So there's a really interesting cross-cutting dynamic here, and I can say I'm in conversations with some really, really, really big corporates who are like, we want to transform our entire supply chain to be more nutritious, not just because of our ESG claims and credits, but because our market is saying this is what we want. Our customers are saying we don't want our kids to be sick, and we don't trust any of the rest of these labels and stuff you've got going on. So that, I mean, it's maybe, yeah, whatever. It's not that bad here.
It has only advantages. We are talking about nutrient-dense quality of food.
Yes.
But when you improve that, then you get more worms in the soil. That's buffering water capacity. You are taking CO2 from the
Yes.
atmosphere. Christina Jones tells
Yes,
us
yes,
the
yes.
liquid carbon rule.
Yes.
When somebody can tell me disadvantages, I like to hear it. We have all the advantages. So what's holding us back to do it? Do it.
Can I continue?
A consensus and the research and the market driver. For me, it's like build a consensus.
Yeah.
Raise the money. Don't forget to raise the money part. build a strategy consensus, raise the money, do the research, and then bring the metric to the market to facilitate those who do care in making decisions. And that 2% or 5%, we think will be is what the corporates are looking for. You had your hand up forever.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it might be useful to do some kind of future pathway, future scenario analysis, and you can make that as complex as you want with the different regions, different continents, different like levels of application, because there's so much going on here. And I get that your research is more about, okay, what do we call this, how do we do this, and then give away the idea, but I feel like there's a lot of interest here about, okay, how can we apply this, who are the stakeholders, and where can the change be coming from? So if you make scenarios like doom scenario, everybody will run to the supermarket and compete for the best nutritional value. It's kind of a doom scenario. You can also make a very like idealistic scenario and see where you want to work towards and what are the steps that need to be taken to reach that, and where does that change need to come from, like consumer behavior change, or more at the farmer's side that they already start improving their soil health. In the meantime,
I think that sounds like what Martin was saying.
Yeah,
write out, tell us a story of where you think this goes. Here, this is all very logical and rational.
Yeah.
Tell me a story.
And I feel like
explain to me how you see this.
As well, more in this treaty.
That's exactly what he said. So we got 2 votes from younger people.
For context.
The voice from the youth is,
kind of promise
tell us a story that we can believe in, because otherwise we're screwed. We're screwed, guys. Can somebody help us out over here? We want to believe in something.
What is the importance, the relevance of this, and how can we achieve this, and actually
Beautiful.
make some kind of promise, let people sign to that as well, like, okay, after
I love
this
what
is
you're
done,
saying. Yes.
then we need to move forward on this, and we do think that this is important, and we see that context is relevant.
As part of a deeper, I love what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I think that should be
Thank you
integrated.
very much.
Yeah.
Bring the heart to the science.
Yeah, make it.
There's the cold data and the, what do they call the warm data?
Warm data.
Yeah, that's a fancy term now, apparently, warm data. Like, in the science world. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I think that's a key element. You know, there's
Yeah.
a fight for defining this definition of quality, and then there's campaigning for people to engage with it, to care about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually what we see. Often people don't change because of facts and figures, but because of emotions, because of wanting to belong to a group or movement. And just for context, actually you don't know this, but or maybe you connected us. That's why Josh is here now.
Okay.
Together, we're starting a community kitchen at the Utrecht Science Park.
Right.
Beautiful.
Where we could do trials like this, blind tasting on flavor, coordinating this with results of nutritional density. So making it something experiential as well. And I think that's very interesting. That's one element I would say. How is it on the culture part of things? And then we have the market. I think that's been discussed very much. And then lastly, the policy. If we can understand that healthier soil saves money for the government, healthier soils will lessen costs for the water boards, will lessen costs for so many for health, etc. And then maybe this is a very interesting indicator to reward farmers for improved soil health.
Yeah.
So you see this after, we had a bit issues with carbon credits. Now the EU is trying nature credits. And I'm curious, could in the policy advice be nutrient credits a way to reward the farmers? Where we pay for effects? So not only on
I love what you're saying.
but also
For me,
on
government I'm very cynical about, but maybe I'm just older than you.
I'm in the game for about 10 years now. I'm cynical already as well.
I'm very cynical about government, but I think, yes.
I'm cynical.
Yeah, thanks. So, the level at the farmer's field.
This is a farmer, yes.
So
who's doing wonderful work.
How are we going in the measurement to take the practices that are also applicable at the farmer's field? Or how do we distract or summarize the practices that we can translate to large-scale farmers' fields? And that's where we are working with our foundation to help those farmers, really to the detail of how big is my knives on my rotavator have to be to make it great cutting for decomposition. And how are we going to extract that from the questionnaires that come with the samples? How are we going to identify the right things to ask to translate to the right methods on the farmer's field?
This is part of what I see as the future vision, is that we're collecting all this metadata about what it was that you did that caused this crop to be what it is. And then we look for the patterns to see who caused their crops to be most well, and then we go deeply and learn from them and share that to all growers on all countries and all continents of all scales to empower all producers in optimizing their crop quality, right?
It's part of the farmers'
with the collective.
that you way back.
This has been our intention for years. This is exactly the whole idea. This is part of what I want to write up. That Martin's like, what's the vision? The vision is we collect all this metadata, we identify what works, and that gets shared. And so farmers know what not to buy and what to do. Which products, if they're going to buy a product, works. Which technique or practice is appropriate here and not appropriate there.
I think in that process, it should not be from the side like seeing what's happening, defining and presenting like, okay, that's what the farmer did, result in that. I think that needs to be together with the agronomists to combine that and make that translatable to new farmers who want to do that. Because otherwise that translation for farmers who want to implement, okay, so my neighbor's doing great. Okay, I can watch from the side of the road what he's doing, but they will never understand to the detail. And we need that detail to be translated to new agronomists also to tell to farmers, to help
And the
others.
people who deserve to have their practices recorded and shared will be identified through this process. And then all the culture sharing can happen, and we can identify who we want to go and learn from, right? That's the whole idea is, farmers don't know, like somebody's coming along selling you a product. Like, well, I don't know, that person's nice. They got a great podcast, like they seem charismatic. The choices the farmers make based on what the purchase is not necessarily logical, but we don't have any context. So this is the idea: is we're providing that context exactly.
The farmers don't talk among each other. I'm always very surprised. They see that the neighbors
Some do.
doing better, and
Some do that are culture shifting,
well,
but a lot of them don't.
Hopefully,
Yes.
Maybe one remark, because in 6 weeks' time, there's been a campaign in the development for the past 3 years with 42 NGOs in total, like all the conservation NGOs, animal well-being NGOs, but also the green farmer NGOs, who are gonna swarm together right now to do a mutual campaign, which will be launched half of November on this topic, literally on this topic.
Beautiful.
How, what's the correlation between healthy nature, healthy food, and healthy human beings?
Beautiful.
That's one. So that's on that culture side. I think that's really, really important. And I keep missing an instrument at the end of this whole process, which you can give me as a consumer or Erwin as a farmer.
Yes.
To start applying. I think that's where, in the end, the money will come from, the investment will come from,
and that I have no doubt that there's going to be lots of people who want to make lots of money selling instruments to lots of different people in the supply chain. There's zero question in my mind that billions will come in wanting to sell instruments. The only question in my mind is, what is the data that those instruments are calibrated to?
Yeah.
And that's the issue. This is the hurdle. If we can do this science properly, and we can publish it openly, and it doesn't belong to anyone, it belongs to everyone, then we give it to the market, and we say, anybody who wants to make a shit ton of money, go compete with each other. All the instruments are already there. The instruments are already there. You can buy them off the shelf. It's simply an act of calibrating.
Because in the end, the people that will develop it from your integrity will rate that integrity, I think. So
let them compete. Let them compete.
Competition hasn't proven to be the best.
If you've got a better suggestion, I'm happy to hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to discuss that.
I'm also sensitive to time. I feel like people may be getting like they've had enough, and I'm not sure how much like actual visceral practical suggestions we're having and how much we're sort of general conversation. So just maybe do people feel like they want to keep engaging in this process for another half an hour, or like kind of done? Some people are done. Some people, I'm feeling like a critical mass may be done, and I don't want to just keep this going and not have you feel like you're rude to get up. So can we, if there's maybe any last couple points that are pertinent to suggestions, let's hear those. Otherwise, from my perspective, relationships with each other are critically valuable, and so any kind of networking that can happen across, and we haven't done introductions, I'm sorry, but feel free to chat and hang out. If you want to go, also feel free to go. But I feel like this has been really productive, and thank you very much. Yes, you haven't said anything, please.
I just had one point about kind of connected to what you were talking about, and it's about the soil health discussion. A specific test, the Haney test.
Yep.
Is that something you have?
That's on the list of what potential, or one of the many things we'd be looking at.
And
yes.
like kind of connected to that, so I actually helped. So my connection to you was through a USC fellowship research project on nutrient density, and we had some funding, and we helped.
You guys are the ones that found the relationship to soil. Yes.
So
soil
we funded for Sustainable Settings Ranch in Carbondale, Brook LeBon. So there, I think we're part of the
that's in Colorado.
Sorry.
That's in Colorado.
Colorado.
Not USC.
No, yeah, my research was at USC. But,
okay.
His farm, Sustainable Settings, is biodynamic, and like they, I think, are one of the stories that
he's a great storyteller about himself. I'm not quite sure how good his nutrients are.
Really, I was curious what the.
That's one of those things that people who are so cocky about how good they are don't share the results when they get them.
He was.
Of their crops.
I spent the night at his ranch, and
he is really powerful about how amazing he is.
So
I know that guy. I don't know. I didn't see his results. I don't. It's not. I'm not allowed. What we do is your data is your data. No one ever gets to know what your results are. Anybody who submits data, your integrity, your identifying metrics are yours and yours alone. If you are part of the project and you don't tell anybody what your results are, if you tell people you're part of the project and you don't tell people what your results are, you can take from that double negative, or you can come to conclusions. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, so.
I just wanted to know whether you are aware of the regeneration growth fund in the Netherlands. So it's a regenerative farming, so they are going to move 1,000 farmers, I think, from current practice to regenerative practices. Yeah. And they are going to collect a lot of data there. So
beautiful.
Maybe that would be an interesting
partner
at
least.
For you to see whether they could participate in this.
I would be amazing. Yes.
Mark is in contact with them already.
Okay.
Which Mark?
Fredericks.
Mark knows. And are you involved already with Dave Swart from DigiFarm?
Tennessee? I've heard of the DigiFarm. Yes.
Mark.
Yeah. I talked to him as well.
I'm there by the experiment board.
Okay,
Then you know that.
Cool.
For water and for light.
brilliant. Okay, I'm going to let people. One last comment, Wolf.
Nutrient density. If you would take that the fourth word, so flavor, taste, cost, nutrient density, then all of a sudden you have the whole spectrum covered. The citizens will understand it. The farmer will go for the cost.
Yep.
Nutrient density. That's something I'll look up.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
One thing, what do you
What?
need from us on your?
What do I need from you? If you would like to put your name on this project, well, did you all? Does anybody have your email?
Me.
Do you have everyone? You have everyone's email.
Well.
Everyone who's here. For starters,
There's someone just
if you are here and you have not given Katrina your email, I do have a final thing.
Yes, I was about to
please,
remind
thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
All right, yes, sorry, I do have a yes. That would be much appreciated. If you want to be affiliated, if you want to be engaged, the easiest thing to do would be to give her your email. Obviously, the way to engage formally, publicly, is on the website, but not everybody's going to go do that, so we might make it easier for you. All right, so we do have a little thing we're doing right now at the sort of proactively in regards to this whole thing, which is using the refractometer internally at the BFA. Not internally, we're building an app, effectively like our Brix app, and so we're branding a refractometer and a garlic press. We're calling it a Brixit kit. Brixit kit. So the app is almost done. It's like operational. It's just got some bugs. And so we've got these kits, and like the refractometer and the Brix readings is a thing we have now, is a meter. You can go out, and so the idea is bring home your shopping, invite your friends over who each have maybe shopped, get a bottle of wine, take out the carrot, the cucumber, the lettuce, whatever it is you've got, take a chunk, squish it, get the reading, upload the date of purchase, the point of purchase, the brand, and the reading into the app. So right now, we the people can begin to engage this process of citizen science, empirical verification, public, transparent, assessment of your supply chain. So this has not been released yet. I have this is a pre-release kit here, and I'm giving it to Katrina, who's our local coordinator organizer. So thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Katrina, for all your work. We wouldn't be here. Yes.
We will have Brix kit parties.
That's the idea.
Exactly.
Is in the next month or so, once we release them, you can start there. Start there. Thank you all very much.
On the Pokemon Go for fresh produce.
Yeah. All right. No reason to leave, but if you want to, feel free. Thank you all very much.
Yes, we are registered in Europe.
Thank you.